Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor, he's Adrian Lacey, and this week I feel I should start the programme by, I don't know, a little song. It's Adrian and Shane. Only because of what we're going to be looking at today. If you're not caught up with the podcast before, we review comedy programmes. We pick one alternate weeks. He picks one week, I pick one the next week. We'll play you 3 clips throughout the podcast, and we'll also tell you what we thought of it and why. And of course, you can play along at home too, can't they, Adrian?
They can. That's funny you should ask me. I can confirm that. I'm not sure you haven't caused a mass exodus already, though, by starting the show with singing.
I thought it was quite good.
Well, that's exactly the problem. You have no critical faculties, especially sitting like that.
Sorry, do apologise. Flight of the Conchords is what we're going to be looking at. Before we do, though, a couple of things to talk about from this week. Do you want the kind of upbeat or the downbeat first?
Let's do the downbeat first, then we can at least bring the mood up.
Okay. We lost to Python this week, which to anybody who's got more than a passing interest in comedy, there's something in Python for everybody, isn't there, really? Don't you think?
Well, I think you have to like the zany, but then who doesn't? Maybe we could even credit them with making the surreal, as we might call it a bit more now than perhaps we did then, making it mainstream. Is that true? Well, now someone's going to shout back quite legitimately, well, the Goons were there first, but they were certainly influenced by the Goons, but obviously Monty Python were TV and indeed went on to the movies.
Yeah,
but yeah, it is a loss.
I was just trying to think whether there was any non-zany stuff, but I suppose you're kind of right. It does fall into that. I mean, I was just thinking of, was it Eric Idle's? Hey, your wife, she likes photos, does she? Hey, know what I mean? Know what I mean? That kind of... Is that zany? I don't know. That kind of... that's why I think it's quite a broad church.
Well, even that was sending up a geezer type, wasn't it? I heard someone say when sort of delivering an obit of Terry Jones and talking more widely about the Pythons, that they were the first to carry themes beyond single sketches. And now I don't even know if that's... They certainly did that. Whether they were the first to do that, I don't know. Someone might be able to think of an exception. But I remember one week there was an announcement that kept cropping up. It was like an in-store announcement. I can't even remember the details because I don't think I've seen it for donkey's ages. But I remember it being a theme for the whole show, or on and off. Do you think that was a little bit different for them?
They did Strandy stuff as well, didn't they? It was like the John Cleese announcer, and now for something completely different. Or
Yes.
What was the other thing they used to do? There were a lot of kind of sort of, like the Gumbies were, you know, the guys that wear the wellies and the white shirts and the hankies on their head.
Oh yeah,
My brain hurts. You know, that kind of, which I remember shouting ad infinitum at my brother when we were younger, because it was early like catchphrase comedy as well, don't you think? The Pythons.
Oh my word!
To it as well.
Do you think it was a bloke thing though? Because when I think back to school, there was no greater kudos than to be able to quote last night's Python show the next day in the playground. But I cannot remember any girls showing any interest in it.
No, I think you could be right. Actually, it's. I mean, maybe because they were all lads in the comedy troupe. That's why they...
Well, it could be that, yeah.
They resonated, I don't really know. But I just thought it was really sad because I didn't realise how he was ill or why he was ill or what was happening. He had dysphasia, didn't he? Which, did you know, which was... it's a slow and sort of gradual inability to speak. And I think by the time he passed away, I think he couldn't speak at all. And for somebody who, when you think he spent his life not only as a Python, but as a filmmaker, a storyteller, I mean, what more of a cruel condition is there to have than that for somebody who's spent their life telling stories? It's a bit terrible, isn't it? Really, when you think.
Oh yeah, it is. Although, from more than one source, people talk about how smiley he was, even up to the end, and apparently acquiring a degree of I don't know, peace about it. But by the sound of things, this is all, of course, second and third hand. But I hope that really was the case, rather than them telling us what we want to believe.
The biggest thing for me, and I almost couldn't watch it, I don't know if we've talked about this before, was their reunion. They did the live shows. Is it the O2? They did some live shows there.
Yeah, not so long ago, really. Well, probably 2-3 years.
I found that very sad. Did you?
It did. Yeah, it didn't feel quite right, and I'm not sure that comedy travels so well across time in the same sense that music does. And also that, I mean, they did an extra sketch. It was billed as this was on BBC TV. Maybe it was an anniversary, and they just did one sketch, and it was given top hype billing. Oh, the first new Python sketch for 30 or 40 years. And it was something about, we're an out of focus group.
Right.
Very simple thought, which could kind of work, but it just made me feel a bit sad. But maybe they felt it worked being out of focus because they were older and it could kind of disguise the aging process. I don't know.
It just kind of felt to me that it was all like, sort of, they were doing the same old thing. And it's right, you're saying about music. I always used to say this. I interviewed a comedian and I interviewed a musician. Invariably, you would have a conversation along similar lines, that it's almost that they're at opposite ends of a spectrum, music and comedy. Because if you imagine, if you're a musician, people want you to go out there and to play the familiar things that they all know. And if you're a comedian, they want you to go out there and tell you a joke that you've never heard before. And if you tell them a joke that you've done 10 times before, they'd be really upset. So it's kind of almost at opposite ends of a spectrum, isn't it, in a way?
There's one exception I can think of which surprised lots of professional comics, which was when... it was a bigwig in the comedy industry. He died young. Addison Cresswell got David Baddiel and Rob Newman into, was it the O2? No, not the O2. Wembley Arena. Anyway, he took shows into arenas. It was his proud boast that he took comedy from sort of sweaty downstairs or an upstairs room in a pub.
Nothing worse than a sweaty downstairs.
Well,
isn't it?
Yeah. It's your way with words, or is it mine?
Yeah.
Lack of. Anyway, yes, moving on from my sweaty downstairs to my sweaty upstairs, and to a sweaty arena. I think that's my more natural, comfortable arena. And everyone wanted them to do, see that bloke over there, that's you, that is.
Right.
Just so they could go away and tell their friends, yes, we saw Baddiel and Newman do it live. So that, I don't know if that show in particular was different, but certainly the hype around it was just massive.
That transcends everything, though, doesn't it? Don't you think that's you, that is? I mean, if you said to me, and I think if you said to a lot of people, can you remember any sketches that Newman and Baddiel did? In fact, they'd probably remember that sketch and not even know it was Newman and Baddiel. But
that would be very depressing for both Newman and, probably worry. Actually, it would probably not worry either of them because they've moved on. Anyway, you said there was something else. So R.I.P. Terry Jones, much missed. But you had something to cheer us up before we get into analysing comedy.
Yeah, very personal. On a lighter note, though, I was out today in the car, and I've been listening to an audiobook, and it came to an end. And I thought, oh no, I've got to put a new audiobook on. So, and I kind of got like about an hour and a half of still being out in the car kind of thing. I thought, and then I realised a show that you'd introduced me to, I'd got 3 or 4 series waiting to be listened to, The Pin. And I have to say, made me laugh. People thought I was going bonkers because I was laughing out loud at this.
Bonkers.
There was one particular scene, because it was like a kind of a sketch, but then it was like the two of them just like chatting in between, wasn't it? Talking about that was a sketch and what we're going to do now, and this is what we're trying to do with our show and all that sort of stuff. But there's a sketch where a copper pulls over this guy and he said, "Why don't you window down, please?" So he said, "What's your name?" And he said, Richard Dastardly. What? He said, Dick Dastardly. And he said, like, he pulls me on about his driving. He said, was it because I cut that bus up? He said, no, you've been throwing bombs out of your car. He said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And he said, well, I'm taking part in a race. And he went, what kind of race? And he went, whack you on.
I always thought their listenership would be too young to get the reference.
Yeah, well, I thought they would be too young to get the reference.
Well, exactly that as well.
But the best part was, and it made me laugh out loud, I thought that was really clever, and he got to it and he said, aren't you a bit of ashamed of yourself, sir? He said, yeah. He said, actually, I'm not really proud of how my life's turned out. He said, I'm a qualified pilot, you know. I just thought, I've got to thank you. I mean, I know we talk about, you know, whether we recommend them or not, but The Pin, what a fabulous show. What a really entertaining show that is.
Pleased to have introduced you to it. And next time you're slating the BBC, just remember it's a BBC show. So if that takes the edge off any rage you might have, I'll be very surprised.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too.
I mean, you think how much that cost to make?
Oh, he's back.
Some of the money they waste. You could make another 100 pins, could you? You started me off.
I did not. I tried to keep it light.
If you want to hear more about The Pin, by the way, Comedy Slab episode 54, we gave it.
I was just going to say that.
8 out of 10.
Oh,
there you go.
I'm going to guess that was spread evenly, 4 plus 4. But
it probably was around that, wasn't it? I would have thought near enough because we both really enjoyed it.
And you almost never give 4.5. Whereas I often give 3.5.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we on with Christian Soldiers, shall we?
Yes, marching as to war.
Let me tell you about what we're looking at this week then. Flight of the Conchords, the TV series. I have to say that because there was a radio series first. That was on the BBC.
Radio 2, not 4, as I
Oh, was it really? I missed that.
In the days when they did comedy.
It is the brainchild of Jemaine, Clement and Bret McKenzie, who star, interestingly and easy for us enough, as Jemaine and Bret. And a guy called James Bobin, I'm guessing is how you pronounce his name, Bobin. They're New Zealanders, they're Kiwis, and the premise is very simple, really. It's two guys who are trying to make it. They're a band. They're trying to make it in the music industry. That's it, isn't it? Really, it doesn't get more complicated than that, I guess, as a premise. We're going to have a headline from you, and we've got the new "Can I guess what Adrian will make of it?"
You're going to do that the other side of the first of 3 audio clips, I'll wager.
I will. Shall we dive right in and have a listen to Jemaine and Bret? All right, first clip is the opener to the show, really, open to this particular episode. Jemaine and Bret are outside there's like kind of local bakery coffee house, and they're outside looking in the window.
Come on, man, I can't go in there by myself.
I don't like croissants.
What was all that about just then?
What?
About you not liking croissants?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about now?
I don't like croissants.
I don't even know what you're talking about
I'm not going
anymore.
in there, man.
You gotta come in there with me. I can't go in there by myself and buy a croissant, can I? You'll think I'm weird. You have to back me up. You have to be what's called my wingman.
Oh, like in Top Gun.
Stop comparing everything to Top Gun. This situation's nothing like Top Gun. Ooh, it's like Top Gun. Come on, it'll only take 5 minutes. We've been out here talking about it for 2 hours now.
What do I have to do?
Just make me seem popular. If I say something, agree with me.
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like a croissant, please.
Yes, that's true, he would.
Okay, croissant, sure.
He's very popular.
Be more subtle about it. That's true, I suppose. He didn't have to say that. Je voudrais un croissant.
What?
Je voudrais un croissant, je suis enchanté. Où est la bibliothèque? Voilà mon passeport. Ah, Gérard Depardieu. Baguette. Baguette.
Ooh la la. Oh, that's the wrong kind of noise, isn't it? I quite like the shaker. I'm looking around to see if I've got anything that can imitate the shaker. I can mime. Thank you. Oh, yes, me gob. How's it go? Rinky tinky tinky. Now, of course, we're an audio podcast, although tragically I have to see Shane really for timing purposes over Skype. But there are some pretty pictures which go along with the music you heard. Effectively a music video, I guess you could think of it as. Anyway, are you doing this second guessing or third guessing of what I'm guessing you're guessing I thought of it?
Yeah, I have to say as well, people don't realise, because we can both see each other, there's scrutiny. Whoever's trying to guess what the other makes of it, there's like deep scrutiny and at the one end and poker face at the other end. And it's a bit like, I don't know if you saw this from Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry Davey, but he's got this stare that he does when he's trying to make people tell the truth. Did you ever see that?
I've seen the show, and of course we slabbed it one week, didn't we? But
there's a new series just coming out of that.
Is there?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that series.
Where's
11,
that?
I think it is.
Which channel's that going to be on?
I don't know. It'll be like this. It'll be HBO, won't it? So I don't really know.
Thank you for pointing out. Yes, the copyright is held by HBO. This was made or copywritten in 2007.
2007.
I know, all those years ago. Right, so you're going to guess what I made of it?
Yeah, I would say that you thought it was all right, but not really that impressed with it. I'd even go so far as to say that your headline would be something along the lines of...
Oh, you're not allowed to guess.
Flight of the Conchords, failure to launch.
I was going to go with Fright of the Discord.
Oh.
You are some of the way there. I've perked up a bit with the second viewing. First viewing took me back to why I hadn't
delved any
it up.
further.
Yeah, and I know it's going to, people are sharpening their green biros even as I speak, the fan club, and we can probably save your efforts because I'm not saying it's a terrible show. I just don't quite get the premise. I don't. It's right back to basics, John Major style. What are we meant to be laughing at? Yes, they're two losers-ish. Although one of them's scored with a dame in this show called Girlfriends, this episode. But, they're never going to hit the big time. But beyond that, I don't know, it's a bit weary.
Don't you think that's the irony of it a little bit, is that, I think they are really talented musicians and songwriters.
Right.
And I mean, all right, it's in a particular genre. It's in a what would you call it? Novelty music, I suppose, or something like that.
Yeah, I guess so. Or Pythons did comedy records and including music, of course. So they're somewhere in that slightly surreal comedy novelty record area.
But they're really good at it. I don't know if you've seen them live. I mean, they are. It's more of the music live, and it is. It's really excellent. It's really clever, really inventive.
Have you seen them live? As in
not live? No, I've seen their live performances.
I was thinking, this is my cheeky way of saying how I'm not particularly enthused by the act, but I would go and see them live. But the following conditions have to be met. One is someone else would have to pay. So that would be you, probably.
Yeah.
2, it would have to be at a venue not too far from me. And 3, I'd have to be home by 9. So if all those conditions can be met, I'm quite happy to see them.
I think we're better off just inviting them round your house, I think, really, and asking them to leave early.
I do that with most guests, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's if anyone comes around in the first place. But actually, they're not even necessarily a working act anymore, are they? Because I mean, they're busy people on their own right.
Yeah, I think Bret is actually involved in filmmaking now. I think.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, directing and all sorts.
Yeah. So, don't you think though? See, I thought out of all of it, and I know what you mean, and I wouldn't completely disagree with you. And I have to say that I remembered it differently to how it was. Experiencing it again. Now, I binge watched this because I was late to it, and somebody said to me, "Oh, you should watch that Flight of the Conchords. You'd really like it." And I kind of ended up watching a whole series in one go and then watching another whole series in one go. Not in one go, but, sort of like consecutive days. And really enjoyed it and really came away thinking, actually, I really kind of like that. Now, watching it again, I kind of get what you're saying, is that it's a bit, almost like a bit too quirky, maybe, in a way, if that's a thing. But I don't know. I mean, to me, the premise is the thing that saves it, because it's such a creative and inventive way of conveying the story, where it goes into music and it goes into song, and as you say, like almost like a pop video, and then it comes out, and then a bit later on he's getting romantically involved with somebody, and that turns into another song as well. And you didn't like that at all, no?
I just wasn't on board by then. It's the classical thing we talk about, and I can't see any easy way round it. It's almost like trying to force yourself to like something. I suppose I could see what they were trying to achieve, and I would be interested to see them live, as in the sense that you've seen them, a recording of them live.
Yeah.
Because I do at least, however grudgingly, respect your taste in music. And I love music and I love comedy, so you put the two together, it ought to be twice as good. But it doesn't always work out that way. Part of the problem, I was thinking of getting back to music, thinking of the Beatles. What I like about the early Beatles, it's almost getting back to sweaty downstairs, sweaty cavern venues. They brilliant songs, brilliant performance, etc., but also selling the song hard, as in singing loud at the mic. It wasn't just someone turning up a fader in the studio to try and make it sound a bit louder. They were singing loud, as they would have had to have done with very poor PA in the cavern and in Hamburg, and so on and so forth. And it's this sotto voce, this real quiet undersell of everything, was just from the Flight of the Conchords. I kind of know why they're doing it, and they're an acoustic duo, so it's of a piece. They're not rockers, they're not the Beatles, but it just kind of annoys me. It's just so thrown away that it's like, well, if you can't be bothered to deliver the gags as far as my ear, I'm not going to be bothered to laugh, kind of thing.
Are you talking about dialogue or music now, or both?
Oh, sorry, I went back to dialogue.
Oh, dialogue, okay, yeah.
But music, they deliver the music. They're very light on the throttle. And I know that's not going to cut any ice with fans of theirs, and I respect that, and I struggled, but
don't you think? And again, I mean, this is. I just wonder whether they're trying to do something different. Is that it's a new version of. I mean, so many times when we do the comedy slab, and we say, okay, the main character is quite feckless, or a bit lost, or a bit, and that's what makes the comedy. That's the whole point of the thing, or the way that it sets up the dynamic to make you feel sorry for them, or to laugh at them, or to laugh with them. And I kind of got the feeling that they'd hit on something, that it was almost like a different way of doing feckless and dopey and disorientated and.
Well, I'm bound to ask, in what way was it different? Because I'm sure I've seen other acts that I find more amusing.
No, not more amusing, but I just thought they were different in a way, that instead of like trying to be geeky or dopey,
or any of the other Seven Dwarfs,
Dave, Dozy,
Beaky, Mick, and
Tit. It was more like a kind of like you said, like a laid back. And there were times when you think, actually, they're not as daft as they're being portrayed, and then other times you think, actually, yes, they are.
Right. It's basically, I can't forgive anyone who can't pronounce croissant properly.
I hate that as well.
It gets on my wick so badly.
Yeah.
I can't help feeling that I would like this a whole lot more if I was a 25-year-old female. It just seemed to be programmed. This could be me completely misunderstanding and the female mind, which would account for an awful lot. But it just seemed to be, well, there was a sort of fantasy of the woman was being pushy about having what New Zealanders call six.
Six, yes.
And she wanted six. And he didn't. And, an obvious sort of classic turning the tables kind of thing. And I could imagine that playing to female audiences better. Plus, they are two good-looking guys, even though they're trying to look a bit dishevelled.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you think there's... It's interesting because I think I read somewhere that they were turned down by New Zealand television and NZTV when they approached them with this as an idea. And I just wonder whether... Have you ever been to New Zealand?
No, I haven't.
It is very Middle Earth. I mean, there's no question about it. Do you know what I mean? It's like it is another.
That's why Lord of the Rings was shot there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is another world. I mean, it's not just another country. It's another planet.
Right.
And I do wonder whether, in a way, maybe is there a lost in translation going on there? Do you think maybe different?
There was something about it that made me think, I wonder if this plays really well in New Zealand because it's seen as something wild and wacky. That might not be what you're saying. You might be saying almost the reverse.
Well, certainly the TV company didn't think it was wild or wacky. There's a guy who plays...
Well, how do we know that? They might have thought it was too wild and wacky. Anyway, sorry, you were going to say...
No, there's a guy who plays Murray, their manager.
Oh, yeah.
And he had a series called Short Poppies. He's a guy called Rhys Darby.
Mm.
And I really like him, and I watched Short Poppies. It was only one series. Short Poppies is a New Zealand term for somebody who never leaves their hometown, and they're a little bit thick. It's a derogatory term. I watched this, and I thought, "Oh, great, this would be really good." And I was really disappointed with it because the comedy didn't connect at all. It was like you could see it was culturally different.
Right.
The New Zealand comedy was different from. It's like the Benny Hill going down in another country, and although he was quite successful in America and Germany and other places across Europe.
It's not like that at all.
So it's the reverse of that, isn't it? Really?
Should we re-record that?
Yeah, that was like kind of the worst example.
It's most unlike Benny Hill.
Yeah. It's anti Benny Hill. That's what it is.
It is. It's over the hill.
I don't know. I do. Like I say, I'm not aghast at what you're saying. I kind of think, actually, I kind of connect with some of it. Should we have another clip and have a listen? Because you mentioned this storyline that's going on where Bret's pulled with this young lady, and very quickly we kind of learn there's this role reversal going on. You kind of think, maybe traditional roles will out, but no, it is quite the reverse of that. She's called Lisa. And here we catch up with Lisa walking.
Sure,
Bret.
it's not Felicia. I got so confused over which was which because that was a running gag.
Anyway, whoever she's walking Bret back to his flat.
Well, this is my place, so
Oh, okay.
thank you for walking me home, and it's a lovely evening.
It was a great evening. Had a really good time.
Good night.
Good night. Oh, can I come up for some tea?
Oh, you don't want to come up. It's a really small flat.
Brett, how long do you wait until you let a girl come upstairs?
3 years.
Oh, you're serious? What? Do you think I am dangerous?
Well, you can't. You're gonna have a cup of tea, but then you gotta go home. Look, it's getting kind of late. I gotta go jogging in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
So.
It is late, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not going to be able to get a cab back to Brooklyn this time of night.
Well, I could give you directions to the F train.
Oh, yeah. That's a really dangerous stop. I mean, I've heard there's maniacs down there.
Maniacs?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should stay.
Yeah, no, I think I should. And I mean, I'll be fine on the couch, or I could stay in your bed with you.
Yeah, probably best just the couch. Well, I'll sleep on the couch, and you can sleep in my bed. How's that?
You'll be comfortable out here?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Great. I'll be in your bed.
Okay.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Now, we'll get to the dynamic, what's going on there in a sec, and what I'm meant to make of it. because I'm still slightly confused. Were you surprised that she wanted to come in for tea and not coffee in New York?
Yeah.
Is that because he's a New Zealander? Do they drink tea more than coffee?
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, it's probably there's more British influences, isn't there, in New Zealand? But yeah, I thought that was a bit like a sore thumb moment, wasn't it?
Maybe you do have tea that late in the evening. I shouldn't get too hung up on it, but it kind of leapt out and didn't sit comfortably.
Yeah,
for
me too. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? That the things that kind of, sort of prick your ears up, as Kenneth Williams would say, or Joe,
or
Orton.
as Joe Orton nearly
Joe
did.
Orton, yeah.
I know what happened to him.
Yeah.
Right, putting that to one side, what am I to make of this? I mean, it's inoffensive. A guy is not badgering a woman for sex, so that, technically that could be newsworthy. But beyond that, earlier we saw him have his hand on what New Zealanders call her breast. And he seemed quite proactive, shall we say, there. So is that an inconsistency of character that I don't feel inclined to forgive it? It doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, no, if you looked, she'd actually got her hand on his hand on her breast.
Well, he didn't exactly seem to be fighting her off,
but isn't that the thing, though, is that, I was saying about how it's a new take on sort of being feckless, or being, the dopey central character kind of thing. It's almost like it's more than that. It's almost like a naivety that they're kind of, and it was at that point that I kind of thought, actually, yes, that's what they are. They're naive. They're not stupid. They're not feckless.
Well, maybe they're short puppies then. Although they've obviously left the homestead, but they're short puppies out in the wild. Which is
they're like a foreigner abroad, aren't they? They're kind of, they're kind, and they're. It's all about, the whole thing is all about their naivety. Is they hook up with a guy as their manager who's useless, and they get taken for a ride, and in other episodes they don't get paid, and all of the, and they get thrown out their flat, and all of these kind of things are all about their naivety rather than anything. And I kind of think that's what they're driving at, and this illustrates it, doesn't it? Don't you think? Isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's consistent with what you're saying. I just don't find it funny. I just think, obviously, if you like it, you like it. But it leaves me, the more I talk about it, the more cold I'm getting about it.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because, as ever, I want to like it. We don't come at these shows wanting to find fault. We critique. Some people get confused between the difference between critiquing and criticising. And it can get a bit blurred. And sometimes, of course, well, what am I doing now but not being wonderfully enthusiastic and positive? But I just don't. Haven't we seen it before? You're kind of making out it's a new thing, but to me, it's all seeming a bit weary.
Were there any bits that you kind of that brought a smile to your face? I mean, there was a scene, I think it was quite early on, where they've got a plumber in the kitchen fixing the sink.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah,
and they're having a conversation. You don't know he's there at first because you don't see him in the shot. So he's there having a conversation, and then he butts in and says something. They went, "Just fix the sink, will you?" and then they carry on with the conversation. Then he butts in again. Didn't that kind?
Yeah, that was nice. That was nice. And the payoff at the end,
that visual gag.
Something like, when are you going to fix the sink? He said, I have fixed it. It's just the water's coming out of a different place or something.
Well, there was an ultimate payoff to that, where a bit later on they sat in the kitchen again and the plumber's gone, and Jemaine fills the kettle up by holding it at a right angle to the tap, and the water sprays out like across the...
I missed that, I confess. I was watching on a very small screen. So, yeah, fair dues. But we're laughing about something that doesn't involve, well, in that instance it involved Jemaine, was it, and filling the kettle. But it's actually when you get away from them that things can be a bit funnier.
They're not natural comedians, are they? They're not what you would think. They're not what you class as natural comedians.
No, again, I know this sounds like I'm confusing their style with what drives them, but it is odd to me that something this low energy It's obviously got some drive behind it because it's got a world, certainly a Western world. They call it a cult audience, which sometimes means a small audience, but I think it's pretty vast. And they can, if they can come over thousands of miles to do a tour over here, they're doing all right, aren't they? Or they were, around the time of the show that we're slabbing, so 10 years or so ago.
I think the interesting thing as well is the way that they've. This, don't forget, presumably was a vehicle that they said, like I say, you've got their stage show, and I think they did it at Edinburgh, which is probably where the BBC found them, because they got their caravan up there all the while now, haven't they? So they did Edinburgh, and they did like a kind of the music show, which is all of their songs, and then they produced the radio show. Did you ever hear the radio show or not?
I'm wondering. I think I heard one of them,
right,
and was similarly bemused. I mean, it's at least a consistent style, if I remember correctly. I don't think the act has changed an awful lot going to TV. Do you?
No, but I mean, it wouldn't, would it? Really? I think as a reference point, I think from the music point of view, they're like a kind of Tim Minchin, Bill Bailey sort of thing, aren't they? I think they're in that kind of vein, aren't they, really? So you think, well, how would you thread a program together that works like that and would work for them and would be a vehicle for them? I mentioned Murray, their manager. I mean, to me, he's the highlight of the series, played by the New Zealand actor Rhys Darby, who I think is doing very well in Hollywood right now as we speak. But they've been they've been conned by, or Murray has been conned by a guy who has told him that he's Quincy Jones' brother.
Now this I like, again, away from the duo. Carry on.
I mean, Murray's a great character, isn't he, as well? He plays that really well, I think, but he's AJ Jones, or Quincy Jones' brother, in the process of selling Murray a stereo, has said that he'll be able to produce some CDs for the band as well. And so he's been and picked those up in boxes and tried to sell them at some point as well. Anyway, we catch up with the boys. They're back at Murray's office, and he's got some bad news about the CDs that he's ordered from AJ.
Okay, so to sum up, basically, CD sales are going okay, but a little slower than I would have liked.
How many have you sold?
1. But I would have liked to have got a few more out than that.
How many have you got left?
2,500.
Can I have one?
You can have a whole box. There you go.
Really?
Yes, take it home. I can't store them here. Jemaine, you take one.
I don't want a whole box.
Take a whole box home with you.
What am I going to do with it?
I can't store them here, so well, just take it home. In fact, if you can take 2 boxes each.
Hey, Murray, how many have you looked in all the boxes?
Just the one.
This one's got sawdust in it.
Oh my God.
Did you buy some sawdust as well?
Open your box, Jemaine.
Look, Murray, sawdust.
We've been done. I didn't tell you this, but I did the business underneath an overpass, and he was dodgy from the beginning.
Well, you had sex with him.
No, he sold me the sawdust boxes.
Did you want to buy sawdust though?
What, Bret? No, I bought the CDs, didn't I?
It's a lot lighter. Did you pick them up?
Of course I picked them up. I should phone Quincy Jones and let him know what his brother's up to. He needs to know this. Oh, I haven't got his number.
We should point out that, in quotes, Quincy Jones' brother is white. Now, that needn't be a problem, in as much as it could have been fostered or adopted. But, I mean, he made me laugh. He is just funny to look at. You could see he's dodgy.
Yeah. AJ, you know he's not Quincy Jones' brother just by looking at him, don't you?
Well, there is that.
Yeah.
And you would be suspicious of him telling you his brother was Quincy Jones.
And didn't it? I mean, I thought that was a really nice scene. It was well written, compact, jokes in there, a bit of visual stuff going on as well. Well delivered, pace was nice. I kind of get it when the two of them are together. It kind of slows down a little bit. But when they bring other characters in, it kind of responds well. I don't know. I thought that was quite a nice little scene there, quite funny. No,
I think I have to agree with you. Yeah. But I haven't said it's unremittingly bleak and terrible. Now there's some nice moments and some nice gags. And actually, to answer your previous question, trying to get me before we heard that clip, trying to get me to think of other things I liked. I did genuinely like the French song sequence, going back to the Croissant shop. You can't even mispronounce it the way they do. Croissant. Now, here's the thing.
Yes. Oh, that's horrible. I'd watch that if I were you.
Well, I'll put it away.
I knew Skype was a mistake.
It's all gone a bit end of the pier.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
You see, that's more traditional.
That's Blazing Saddles, that is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be 40 years plus old, isn't it?
Exactly.
Am I looking for too many hidden depths that aren't there? But when they go from being in a croissant shop to singing in French, and there's some nice moments like "Où est le livre? Ah, dans la bibliothèque," and silly things like that. But what people won't see, and it would be nice for them to see on telly if they haven't already seen it, is the visual treatment is really nice, and it's trying to recall 1960s swinging Paris sort of fashionable look, even with the sort of scratchy, grainy treatment of the film. But all I was going to say was, are we to read that as, is that really where they live in their heads? Are they in this fantasy land where everything goes into multi-psychedelic colours? And do you think that's how we're meant to receive it, or I'm just trying too hard?
Well, do you know, I'm not normally like this in terms of being so over-analytical, but I got the distinct impression that all of the music sequences are in their heads. It's all their imagination. That's the impression that I got with it. That's how I felt about it. It's interesting because I put that in my notes as well about they bothered to make the film grainy and all the rest of it. But then when you think about it, with the modern editing software now, I mean, it is literally drag and drop, isn't it? It's the click of a mouse you can do that. So to not do it would be blooming lazy, wouldn't it, really? Apparently, their budget for the first series was so minuscule that the catering was a pack of 10 sandwiches.
Well, do we believe that? Because, look, I looked at the credits, and that's the kind of bore I am. I think people know by now, regular listeners. I looked at the credits, and they had someone who was, and I quote, I'm trying to find it, hang on, on my analogue notes here. They had someone credited as hair department head, which seems kind of appropriate, considering where hair is.
Yeah.
But in all my years in national TV, as far as I know, there's your average show wouldn't have a hair specialist. They would have
a makeup person. Do they have a makeup person as well?
I think that was in addition to.
Right.
Trust you to ask me the awkward question. Well, I assumed it was.
I don't know. I always think this, like when you see credits in films for like transport captain, and you think he was the bloke or the woman that organised all the vehicles. It's like.
But he might have been organising the drivers of all the vehicles.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. Yeah, I didn't mean organise all. Come on, vehicles, follow me.
Anyway, but do we not think there's a very close parallel between Murray as their hapless, feckless manager, and of course he's useless. And who else do we think of who's managing someone who's equally useless and indeed they would have been able to see this series before because it predates this series we're slabbing?
I don't know.
Oh, come on. Just the other week. Who was I praising?
Oh, extras.
Yeah, Stephen Merchant.
Well, do you know, the weird connection is, I don't know if you saw this, but
David Bowie.
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
One of the Flight of the Conchord episodes has got a sequence with David Bowie in, which was played by Jemaine in the end.
Yes, as opposed to actually getting the real David Bowie.
But they asked David Bowie and he turned them down because he'd just done extras.
Oh, right. He didn't want to be known as a comedy stooge.
Yeah.
That's interesting. They managed to get Neil Finn, though, at one point, I see. Oh, that's actually in the radio series, I think. And Rob Brydon. Anyway, do you think we're at the point of having to score this out of 5?
Can I just say, sorry, before we do the scores?
Yeah.
It was very wholesome, wasn't it, don't you think? There was no bad language. There was no... I mean, you could sit down with your kids and watch this, don't you think?
Apart from the Brist. Well, it depends where you put the threshold, if you'll put on the expression. It's pretty wholesome.
Just above the sweaty downstairs.
And below the sweaty upstairs, or near my cleaner's arena. That's another story entirely. Wholesome, but that's not exactly high praise, is it? Because neither of us are wholesome.
No,
so why would we want to watch anything?
And the other thing is, as well, when they did Series 1, they wrote the songs first and then wrote the script around it.
Okay, I would like to say, that shows, and I spotted that, but I didn't.
No, I didn't.
But it doesn't actually worry me either way. But the songs are I couldn't believe how low they were in prominence in this show. That's why I'd be interested to see a recording of a live show of theirs, or indeed a live show, but as long as I was get back home for 9, as you've heard.
Yeah, or they can come round your house and leave early. They won't be offended. Anyway, sorry, go on. What's the scores on the doors, Anthea?
I think I can do no more. And since I play usually good cop to your bad cop, this is actually quite bad for a good cop. 2.5. But if I fell in love with you... Oh, that's a Beatles song. No, if I fell in love with it further down the line, I could squeeze 3 out of my soul.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's catastrophic.
But... Well, it's not exactly shocking, surely, given how I reacted to it. So 2.5, I'm going to stick.
You're sticking on 2.5. I am going to give it. I'm teetering between, and I like a good teeter.
You're a born teeterer.
I can't help it. I'm a natural born teeterer.
Teetotaler.
I'm between a 3.5 and a 4. There is something in this that gives it a special place in my heart. However, that's the bottom line, as Diana Ross sang. Upside down. Boy, you turn me. Carry on. I as a
kite. Why are you doing a West Country accent now?
Been watching.
Mostly this week, been slabbing.
3.5 or 4. I think I'm going to
plummet
4.
Sometime before one of us dies of natural causes.
A 3.5.
Now, see, that's quite tight given the high praise you were offering.
And the reason I give it a 3.5 is because if you'd have asked me to give it a number before watching it, I would have given it a 4. But watching it again...
It's got worse.
Yeah, it's got worse, but I kind of thought, I don't know. I don't remember it being as I remembered it, if you know what I mean.
Can't quite process that, but I'll go away and think about it.
So what did you give it? So it's a 6, is it, out of 10?
Yeah. And
6 out of 10?
Yeah. That's not overly generous as a total, but then, I thought you were going to go for a defo 4 the way you were talking. But you're an enigma even to yourself.
I like it, but there's something that makes me not like it as much as I liked it the last time. Anyway, let's not dwell. 6 out of 10. If you want to go and have a look, you can actually download. I'm afraid you're going to have to buy the episodes, but you can get it on YouTube where you can download and buy it, and also on Netflix, I think it is. Have a look anyway. I'll put the links in on the description. So what are we going to have for next week's homework?
Well, what dual male act might this remind us of, or at least make us think of, as possible influences or possible contrasts even in the modern age? So I'm not going back to days of your, Morecambe and Wise, 2 Ronnies type double act.
What was the question?
I thought you'd lost interest. Dear listener, he turned off mic, which is all right if you're not talking, but he also turned off camera. Looked distracted. Are you looking at the shopping channel again?
No, I just...
You are, aren't you? QVC.
What doesn't...
It was a very straightforward question.
It wasn't. Listen back to it.
It was. Unfortunately, I did a Lacey and I put a huge subordinate clause in the middle, so you couldn't remember how I'd started out. Get your subordinate clause out. I'll start again.
Okay.
I was talking about... I got slightly complicated things by talking about different double acts, but can you think of another male double act?
Little
Sadly
and large.
male, because you know I'm a feminist. No.
Cannon and Ball.
I deliberately said in the modern age, if you were listening and not looking at shopping channel. By which I mean, not so many years before or after Flight of the Conchords.
Oh, yeah. What they're called?
I think you're going to go for the wrong one, but I've got two.
Is it
sets
Bottom?
written down. No, although we should do that someday. No,
Yeah.
I thought you were, when I said surreal, I thought you might have got the steer to Mighty Boosh, which it isn't. I've written them down.
I think Flight of the Conchords and Mighty Boosh are very much in the same stable, don't you?
Yeah. Well, can you think of another double of act? They haven't got the surreal edge. Well, have they? They live together anyway, so they've got that in common with Morecambe and Wise, and the Conchords.
No, go on, put me out of my misery.
Peep Show.
Oh, wow, okay.
Thought it's high time we had a peep at a peep show. I was going to go in at the ground floor, but then I thought, nah, because actually, selfishly, I've backtracked to Series 1, Episode 1 before, and do you know how many series there've been? It's 9 or 10 odd. So
Nine
they've done
series,
really
yeah.
well.
Do you know it's originally called POV?
Oh, because that's what it is, a point of view.
But nobody, they said nobody would know what POV stood for, so...
But that's not, doesn't always stop something taking off as a name, does it?
No, because it becomes an entity in and of itself, doesn't it then, really? But
But they did actually strap cameras on their heads, didn't they?
Yes.
So they were acting for getting the reaction shot. So that's a pretty unique way of working. That is, if you will, their USP, to use another TLA 3-letter acronym.
And then, of course, made by my cousin Andrew as well, which is nice. Keep it in the family.
Oh, Andrew O'Connor, the famous, but he's not in any way related to you.
Well, we'll find out next week, won't we, when he's on the podcast with us.
Will we? Okay, well, I'll bring...
The Flight of the Conchords.
No, that's not going to work. Yeah.
But they've got to go at 9.
But they will be round here because you said to ask them. So, Peep Show, no, I should tell you which series. I'm going roughly in the middle of it. So, Series 5, Episode 4.
Wow, okay.
I quite like the photo that accompanied it. And as any fool knows, certainly in the UK, you can backtrack with Peep Show on the channel4.com website.
Awful.
Or the so-called awful app, as Shane would have it, or All 4, as they and I would have it. So Series 5, Episode 4 of Peep Show is on the Slab of Comedy next week.
You can say what you like about Channel 4, but they are beautifully generous with their back catalogue. There is no denying that.
Except when they're not. But yeah, more often than not. It's probably because they're generous with their buyouts when they buy the shows in the first place.
Yeah, they do good business, don't they, quite obviously. But brilliant. Okay, listen, if you've enjoyed the podcast this week and you'd like to have a wander down memory lane, then you're more than welcome to do so. There are now... approaching
79.
Yeah, approaching 80 episodes. That'll be our 80th.
Oh, it's a big anniversary. Yeah.
Next week. That'll be, we'll get a candle with get a cake with 80 candles on, or get a candle with 80 cakes on it. It's
I prefer the latter.
It's hit and miss which one we do, isn't it, really? But if you want to go and have a listen to this one or any other episodes, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on all the places normally where you get one. Get your podcast from, you can catch up with the Comedy Slab.
And on anti-social media, naturally enough, we are at Comedy Slab on Twitter. Do follow us there, please. We tweet sparingly, but it's quality, not quantity, as we always say. And likewise, we are at Comedy Slab. We have a Facebook page. If you could give that the big old thumbs up, that'd be wonderful. Also, there's nothing like a personal recommendation, which is probably what you've done so far. Nothing like a personal recommendation. So if you could break the habit of a lifetime or indeed a lunchtime and recommend us to friends, family, imams, priests, politicians, whoever is in your social circle or antisocial circle, that would be appreciated.
And don't forget, if you head to Spreaker and Stitcher or whatever, and you subscribe, then as soon as the next episode becomes available, it'll ping your little thingamajig, and you'll be ready to stick your doofus in your what's it and have a good old what's my name.
Yeah, and I love it when you talk technical. So I'm off to find a woman who is... We never got round to one of my favourite lines. I'm looking for a woman who is both a sniper in Iraq, in Fallujah, and also a pastry cook, making crescents. Croissant.
And if you need me, I'll just be sweaty downstairs.